Time seemed to slow around Gene. He could hear his heartbeat thumping in his ears. Nothing made sense. He had just blown several men's limbs off in an attempt to save a girl from a situation he couldn't even begin to fathom. And that wasn't the worst of it. He had watched as the sinew and flesh he had shot to pieces puzzled itself back into the shape of a human arm, and then reattached with a residual limb. Gene had to choke back his vomit to keep from spewing on the still bleeding young woman in his arms. Looking up from the girl he held, he noticed only 2 of the men were getting up. The third was laying stone still, a massive hole permeating his chest. The weight of that hit Gene like a ton of bricks, but he shook it from his head, knowing it would have to be something he'd worry about later. Hugging the injured girl to his chest, he turned and sprinted out of the alley. One footfall came after the next, and before he knew what he was doing, he found himself throwing open the door to the convention center and making his way toward the elevator that would carry him up to Douglas's office. Before he was more than halfway across the convention floor, though, he was slowed by a very worried and cautious-looking Tim. "Oh, what's going on there, buddy?" Gene shot Tim a look. "No time. They might still be after us. Up to Douglas's office, and I'll explain." Tim hesitated for but a second, then rushed ahead, pressing the elevator button and scanning his keycard. They all rushed in, and in the last seconds of the elevator door closing, they saw 2 figures rushing ahead toward the elevator. They could hear pounding on the metal from below as the elevator rose. "Don't worry. They can't get up here without a card. Now, you want to tell me what's going on?" Gene ignored the question and looked down at the woman in his arms, and winced as the pain of his lacerated forearm finally hit him. "You okay? Can you stand?" The woman gingerly nodded her head and pulled away from his arms. Her clothes hung ragged around her slender frame, and as she shook, her mess of red hair fell over her face. One thing was noticeably apparent, though, and that was that her skin held a greenish tint. Gene was about to ask about it, but the elevator dinged, the unexpected sound causing all of them to flinch. The door slid open, revealing the large office he had been in the day before. Douglas sat once again in front of his desk, poring over papers, but shot to his feet at the sight of them. "What happened?" Rushing forward, he guided them to sit. "Tim, grab the med kit." Without another word, Tim walked over to a cabinet in the corner of the room and pulled a large camping backpack from one of the drawers. Douglas took the bag from Tim and began pulling out medical supplies, as well as small jars of what looked to be different herbs. Douglas went to work first on the woman. With small practice motions, he started cleaning her wounds, applying bandages, as well as a variety of substances from the different jars. Eventually, he came to the large bite wound and winced. "Oof, whatever got a hold of you this time, Ginger, really did a number on you." With that, he went to his desk and pulled a small potted plant from atop it. Taking some of the dirt in his hand, he smeared it into the large wound. Gene had been watching the exchange and was about to scream out in protest at this, worried he would get her wound infected, when he saw the dirt sink into her skin and only a small scrape was left for Douglas to bandage. Gene's jaw went slack. Glancing over, he expected Tim to wear the same look. Instead, he was greeted with stinging pain as Tim dumped half a bottle of ethanol on his arm. "God damn it, Tim! Warn me first!" Now, I'm only trying to help. Now give me your arm so I can stitch you up." Gene reluctantly held out his arm, and quicker than he thought possible, Tim had his arm stitched up and bandaged. "I must have lost a lot more blood than I thought. Seems like I'm losing time. And I'm seeing things. Either that, or someone needs to start talking." Gene said, a bit of edge in his voice. Douglas sighed. "Well, you were picked for the hunters, so you were gonna learn at some point. But before I answer your question, let me ask you one in turn. Why did you save Ginger?" Gene scoffed. "What kind of stupid question is that? I couldn't stand by and watch 3 men tear into a poor lady." Douglas shrugged. "True, but from what Ginger said, you were outnumbered." Gene chuckled grimly. "Nah, they were the ones outnumbered. I had more shells than they had body parts, even with their hoodoo voodoo." A full smile split Douglas's face. "Fair enough. Well, suffice it to say, you've stepped into something most people don't even know exists. There's more going on behind the scenes than I could teach you in a lifetime. Our friend Ginger here is what you would call a force nymph. As of late, she has been harassed by ghouls, Humans who have taken to consuming the flesh of beings of magic. You see, once a human consumes the flesh of a being of magic, it acts as a sort of stimulant, kickstarting their body and allowing them to do the impossible. If enough flesh is consumed, they can even regenerate entire pieces of themselves. The problem, besides the obvious of them killing people to fuel their addiction, is when they stop getting enough to eat, their systems catch up with them, sometimes causing entire limbs to just melt off. While extremely difficult, it is possible to rehabilitate them, though most are so addicted they would rather die than stop. Gene ran his hands through his hair, digesting everything that had just been divulged to him. Alright, so next question. You keep talking about me being picked. Am I a wizard, Harry, or what? Tim stifled a chuckle behind him, while Douglas wore a look of confusion, apparently not understanding the reference. No, you're not a wizard. We have other people for that. You, my friend, as you've proven both previously and today, are a hunter. Now, I know we already have a contract from yesterday, but I was planning on slowly introducing you to the unseen. Then I would have offered you a better deal. Now, I guess it's time for negotiations. Gene gritted his teeth. He hated being played the fool, and right now he felt as if his whole world was crumbling around him. You're damn right it's time for negotiations. Like, how much do I have to pay you so I can leave right now? Douglas looked as though he'd been struck. Now, I know this must be difficult. Nah, you don't have a clue. You don't know. 1 second, I think things are finally looking up. And the next, I've killed a man, or a ghoul. Hell, I don't know. Now I'm being told I'm supposed to be a hunter, whatever that's supposed to mean. Douglas sat across from him, a look of sympathy written plainly across his face. He took a moment and let Gene breathe. Then he spoke. Trust me, friend. If anyone knows what you're going through, I do. I was introduced to this lifestyle when I was only 18. I went on a road trip for my 18th birthday. I wanted to see the country. I wanted to have a vacation all to myself. My parents weren't too keen on the idea, you see. They wanted me to start working at one of the businesses on the reservations immediately, so I could get started on my future, they said. Eventually, I told them I was going whether they liked it or not and slammed the door in their face. Then I drove off. A weak smile played across Douglas's face. It was an amazing road trip, but when I returned home, it wasn't exactly what I expected. Douglas's face fell as he continued. I could immediately tell something was off. When I drove back onto the reservation, several doors had been left open, as if no one had time to close them. Turns out, while I was away, having the time of my life, a creature known as a Wendigo made its way through and killed everyone on my reservation. Only reason I knew what happened was a letter my dad left me. It detailed the creature that was taking people, and he told me he loved me and that he was glad I was on my road trip. At first, I didn't believe it was real, but after finding several houses worth of bloody proof, the tears came. Then there was only rage. I wanted revenge, and that is how I found and joined the Hunters. I've yet to find the Wendigo, but I know I'll find him. Question is, my friend, will you be there by my side when I do? Gene looked at the large man up and down. You're telling me no one noticed when all those people died? Douglas shook his head, his hands now visibly shaking, now stooped over in his chair, staring at the floor. No, they noticed. They just didn't know how to explain it. Eventually, local police said that a bunch of people went savage and killed each other. Luckily, I could prove I was out of the state when everything went down. Eventually, I was awarded most of the land, but I couldn't bring myself to keep it. Instead, I sold it off, and I've been funneling my life into the Hunters ever since. Damn, Gene winced. That has to be rough. I couldn't imagine, and I hope you find this creature you're after. But I just don't got a doggy in this fight. Douglas looked up from his feet and stared straight into Gene's eyes. You're right. Let's change that.
You see, we did some research on you. We know more about you than you probably do about yourself. And we know about your mother.
Gene jumped up to his feet, hands balled into fists.
You best not touch her, you son of a bitch!
Douglas held a hand up.
That's not what I meant. What I should have said is we know about her condition. I know how it feels to lose family. And if you're half the man I think you are, you would do anything to help your mother. So here is what I'm offering. You get the same pay as before, but we'll cover all of your mother's health expenses from here on out. In return, you will learn about the unseen, learn to fight, and most importantly, hunt those that would harm the unsuspecting.
Gene pulled out his phone. Looking down at the screen, he saw a picture of his mother, and then he raised his head up to stare back at Douglas. Then, looking at the wolf's head to his left that's mounted above Douglas's desk, he grimaced.
You know, I get why you got that hanging there. You really like forcing people into corners, don't you? Fine, give me the paperwork.
Douglas stood, grabbing the paperwork from his desk. It was at this point Gene remembered that they weren't alone in the room. Both Ginger and Tim were staring at them. Gene leveled his eyes at Tim, who smiled brightly at him.
Guess this means you're my new best friend.
Ginger stifled a laugh, then looked at Gene in the face and said, I would be dead if it weren't for you. Everything has been moving so fast. I haven't had the chance to be able to thank you properly. All of this happened because you saved me. Your entire life is about to change because I couldn't keep myself safe. The least I could do is give you some kind of reward. I could teach you a bit of my magic. Or I could even make you a ring or a weapon. I can't begin to repay you. You've done so much for me. But I'd like to try. Seems like Gene's world has been turned upside down, don't you say, my dear players? The fog of the unseen is lifting, and it's leaving him with more questions than answers. In such a dangerous world, what would be the best thing to protect yourself? Maybe you would like some magic to try and use to stay versatile in any situation. Maybe some kind of wearable protection, because you never know when you'll be surprised and don't have a chance to pull a sword or a spell. How about a weapon? As some people say, the greatest defense is an offense. Maybe he can't even bring himself to take something from her. I mean, she's been having such a bad night already. Could he really ask for more? Or maybe something else. You decide, listeners. Just hop right onto our YouTube comments and vote there. And if you have any interesting ideas on how you like the story to go, tell us. If it gets the most likes by the time we write the next part, we'll go with your idea. That's it for now, my friends. Until next time, let's write a story. Let's play a game without the dice.